My name is Amanda Brooks, and I'm 33 years old. The day I returned home from brain surgery, I sent a simple message to my family group chat. My flight lands at 1 p.m. Can someone pick me up? I stared at the screen, my hands trembling as the pain medication wore off and the throbbing in my skull intensified. The message wasn't asking for much, just a ride home. After all, I'd just gone through a terrifying, life-altering procedure. The first reply came almost instantly. "Mom, we're busy today, Amanda. Just grab an Uber." A second reply followed seconds later from my older sister, Melissa. "Melissa, Amanda, you really need to plan ahead. We've got wedding prep all day." My heart sank. I read their words over and over, hoping I had misunderstood, that maybe I was imagining the casual dismissal. But no, there it was, black and white, their priorities perfectly clear. I was still dizzy, still fragile from the surgery, and they couldn't even be bothered to pick me up from the airport. I typed out a single word, "Okay." Then I set the phone down, swallowing the bitterness rising in my throat. What they didn't know was that they weren't the only ones who saw my message. Someone else had been quietly watching, someone who understood what I'd been through, someone who wasn't about to let me face this alone. When my family found out who actually showed up to get me, my phone exploded with 50 missed calls in less than an hour. But that was nothing compared to what happened at Melissa's wedding a week later. That was the moment everything changed forever. 3 months before that airport text, my life looked very different, or at least I kept pretending it did. Most mornings started before dawn at St. Catherine's Children's Hospital, where I worked as a pediatric oncology nurse. My days were filled with IV drips, medication schedules, and comforting terrified parents while their children battled diseases no child should ever face. It was exhausting, heartbreaking work, but it was also my calling. "Miss Amanda," a tiny voice squealed one afternoon as I bent to check on a patient's vitals. I turned and saw Sophie, a 6-year-old with bright brown eyes and a head wrapped in a pink scarf. She was clutching a wrinkled piece of paper. "I made you this," she said shyly, holding it out. I knelt beside her bed and unfolded the paper. It was a crayon drawing of 2 stick figures holding hands, one with long brown hair like mine, the other smiling despite the faint outline of an IV pole. Above them, in shaky handwriting, she'd scrawled, "Miss Amanda is my hero." My throat tightened. "Thank you, sweetheart," I whispered, hugging her gently. Moments like that were why I stayed late, why I skipped meals, and gave every ounce of myself to this job. But giving so much at work meant I had little left when I went home, and my family never noticed. My mother, Linda Brooks, only had eyes for my older sister, Melissa. Melissa was everything Mom bragged about at book club. "Melissa just got another promotion. She and Robert are buying a new house. Did you see her vacation photos?" When it came to me, the tone shifted. "Oh, Amanda, she's still in healthcare." Mom said the word like it was a consolation prize rather than a career. Melissa was the golden child, successful, married, for now, glamorous. I was the family disappointment, recently divorced, no children, and living in a small apartment that I could barely afford. And yet, somehow, I was always the one giving. 2 years ago, Melissa had a honeymoon emergency. She called me crying about a non-refundable trip to Cabo. I wired her $5,000 without hesitation. Then, when she and Robert began planning their wedding, she needed $10,000 for the venue deposit. "It's what family does," Mom had said when I hesitated. Melissa promised to pay me back. Deep down, I knew she never would. By January, I started having blinding headaches. At first, I blamed stress and long shifts. Then my vision began to blur, and one night, in the middle of inserting an IV for a fragile patient, everything went black. When I woke up in the ER, a neurologist sat beside my bed. The MRI results showed a benign tumor, dangerously close to my optic nerve. "If we don't remove it soon," he said carefully, "you could lose your sight." My heart raced. I was terrified, not just of the surgery, but of being alone through it. I was referred to Dr. Bennett, a top neurosurgeon in Houston. During our video consultation, his tone was serious. You'll need someone with you for at least 2 weeks. The recovery is intense. Absolutely no flying alone afterward." I forced a smile and lied. Of course, my family will be there. But deep down, I already knew the truth. When the time came, I'd be on my own. The night before I flew to Houston, I decided to give my family one last chance to show up for me. I opened the group chat and typed carefully, "Surgery is scheduled for March 15th. I'll be at Methodist Hospital in Houston if anyone wants to visit." My thumb hovered over the send button for a moment. My heart pounded with a mixture of hope and dread before I finally tapped it. The first response came from Mom, a single thumbs up emoji, just a yellow hand floating on the screen. Melissa didn't respond at all. A few minutes later, my cousin Erin wrote, "Sending prayers," with a heart emoji. And that was it. 17 people were in that chat, 17 family members, and not one offered to come. Not one even asked if I was scared. I told myself I shouldn't be surprised, but as I sat there alone, staring at my phone screen, the rejection cut deeper than I wanted to admit. 2 days later, I was lying in a stark white hospital bed in Houston. The rhythmic beeping of machines was my only company. The nurses were kind, but every time a door opened, I couldn't stop myself from glancing up, hoping to see a familiar face. No one came. On the morning of the surgery, Nurse Maria, a warm, soft-spoken woman with kind brown eyes, lingered by my bedside. "You don't have anyone here?" she asked gently, glancing toward the empty visitor's chair. I swallowed hard. "They're just busy," I whispered, my default excuse even now. Maria's expression softened. She reached for my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with compassion, "nobody's too busy for this. I'll stay with you." True to her word, she did. She sat beside me while the anesthesiologist prepped me for surgery, humming softly like a mother would to a frightened child. During my 2-week recovery, Maria checked on me constantly. Some days, she even brought her lunch into my room so I wouldn't have to eat alone. It wasn't the same as having my family there, but it was something. Kindness freely given by someone who didn't owe me a thing. And in the quiet of that hospital room, I began to wonder if maybe the people who were supposed to love me the most never truly did. 2 weeks after my surgery, I was finally cleared to go home. My body was weak, my steps unsteady, and the dull ache in my skull was a constant reminder of what I just endured. At the Houston airport, I sat slumped in a chair near my gate, clutching my discharge papers. My fingers trembled as I opened the family group chat. I told myself this was a simple, reasonable request, one last chance for them to show up for me. My flight lands in Seattle at 1 p.m. Can someone pick me up? Just had surgery and can't drive. I pressed send and waited, my stomach twisting into knots. The typing bubbles appeared almost immediately. "Mom, busy today, Amanda. Just call an Uber." The message felt like a physical slap. Seconds later, Melissa chimed in. "Why don't you ever plan ahead? Robert and I have wedding prep all day." My eyes burned, but I kept reading as more replies trickled in. Cousin Erin, "Wish I could. Kids have soccer." Uncle Joe, "Working today. Sorry." One by one, they all said no. 17 family members, 17 people who lived within a half hour of the airport, and not a single one could spare the time to pick me up after brain surgery. I stared at my phone, silently willing someone to reconsider, to at least ask how I was feeling, to acknowledge what I'd just been through. But instead of concern, a new photo popped up in the chat. Melissa had sent a picture of 2 floral arrangements. "Which centerpiece do you guys like better? Roses or peonies?" The group chat erupted instantly. Suddenly, everyone had time to type long, detailed opinions about flowers. Roses are classic. Peonies are elegant. Mom even sent 3 Pinterest links in a row. And my message, the one about my surgery, my need for help, just sat there, ignored, like it had never been sent at all. I felt something inside me break. My hands were cold, my chest tight. I typed a single word in reply. "Okay." Melissa immediately responded, "Don't be passive-aggressive, Amanda." Mom followed with, "We all have responsibilities, you know." My vision blurred, not from the tumor this time, but from tears. I turned off the group chat and set my phone on my lap. I'd never felt so alone. Then, out of nowhere, a private message popped up. "Don't take an Uber. I'm already at SeaTac waiting for you." Confused, I blinked and read it again. The sender's name made my breath catch. Dr. Gabriel West, the CEO of the entire hospital network where I worked, a man so powerful and respected that most employees never even spoke to him directly. "You what?" I typed back. "I flew in this morning. No one should come home alone after brain surgery, Amanda," his reply read. "I've got you covered." For a moment, I just stared at the screen, stunned. My family hadn't shown up, but someone else had, someone I never expected. The flight home felt endless. My head throbbed despite the medication, and every bump of turbulence sent a jolt of pain through my skull. By the time the plane landed, I was so dizzy I had to grip the seat in front of me just to stand. "Is someone meeting you, honey?" the flight attendant asked as I shuffled toward the aisle. "Yes," I whispered, though the truth still felt unreal. Each step toward the terminal was slow and deliberate. My body felt like it didn't quite belong to me yet. When I reached the top of the escalator, I froze. There, standing tall and composed amid the chaos of baggage claim, was Dr. Gabriel West. He held a sign with my name written in bold black marker, Amanda Brooks. For a second, I thought the painkillers were making me hallucinate. Gabriel West didn't pick people up at airports. He didn't even work in the same city as me most days. He was the CEO of our entire hospital network, a man whose decisions shaped thousands of lives. And he was here, for me. When his eyes met mine, his expression softened. "Amanda," he said, striding forward. I tried to smile, but my lips trembled. "Dr. West, what are you doing here?" "First of all, it's Gabriel," he corrected gently, slipping an arm under mine to study me. "And second, no one should come home from brain surgery alone. Nancy forwarded me that group chat. I couldn't let this happen." My throat tightened. "You flew all the way from San Francisco?" 1,300 miles, he said casually, as if it were nothing. I cleared my schedule. This mattered more. I couldn't even speak. "Come on," Gabriel urged, guiding me toward the exit. Outside, a sleek black town car waited at the curb. The driver rushed to open the door, and I gasped when I saw the back seat. A soft pillow, my favorite brand of coconut water, even the exact pain medication Dr. Bennett had prescribed, ready and waiting. You did all this?" I whispered. Gabriel smiled faintly. "Your frigid home is stocked too. I arranged for a home nurse to check on you every day for the next 2 weeks." My knees nearly buckled. Why? Why would you go to so much trouble?" He paused, his voice low and steady. "Because, Amanda, you've spent years taking care of everyone else. The patients, their families, your colleagues, even your own family, who clearly don't deserve you. It's time someone cared for you." A sob caught in my throat. Gratitude and grief crashed over me in equal measure. For so long, I'd poured myself out for people who only took and never gave back. And here was someone, a near stranger really, showing up for me in a way my own mother and sister never had. In that moment, I understood something painful but liberating. Love wasn't about blood. It was about who showed up when it mattered. As Gabriel helped me into the car, I realized I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. I had a chosen family now. People like Gabriel, like Nancy, like Maria, who saw me, valued me, and cared enough to stay. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The next morning, sunlight filtered weakly through my blinds. My head felt clearer after a full night's rest, but the moment I reached for my phone, a new kind of dizziness struck me. 50 missed calls, 17 voicemails, over 100 text messages. My screen lit up like a slot machine as more messages poured in. I opened the family group chat and instantly saw the frenzy. "Mom, why was Gabriel West at the airport?" "Melissa, the Gabriel West? Uncle Joe, wait, isn't he some billionaire hospital guy?" "Cousin Aaron, oh my God, Amanda, how do you know him?" The conversation scrolled endlessly, a digital storm of disbelief and curiosity. I scrolled past it, my chest tight with a mixture of amusement and anger. The same people who couldn't spare 10 minutes to pick me up were now panicking because someone important had shown up for me instead. Then my phone buzzed again, a private message from Melissa. "Is he single? Could you introduce us at the wedding? Please don't be weird about it, Amanda." I almost laughed out loud. My sister hadn't even texted me once to ask how my surgery went, but now she wanted me to play matchmaker. Before I could even roll my eyes, another message came in, this time from Robert, her fiancé. "Amanda, let's talk about a potential business opportunity. Gabriel's network would be a perfect fit for my firm. Family helps family, right?" I didn't reply. Instead, I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. They didn't want me. They wanted access to Gabriel. A final text arrived, this one from Mom, her tone suddenly sweet and syrupy. "Sweetie, we've rearranged the wedding seating. You'll be at the main table now, right next to us." I almost choked on the irony. For years, I'd been shoved to the kids' table, dismissed and ignored. Now that Gabriel's name had entered the conversation, I was suddenly worthy of a prime spot. I didn't reply to her either. I simply turned off my phone and let the silence speak for me. Let them scramble, I thought. They were about to learn just how quickly everything could change. The Fairmont Hotel ballroom glittered like something out of a magazine. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, the air thick with perfume and money. Melissa had spared no expense. White roses lined every table, a string quartet played softly, and servers in black vests moved like a perfectly choreographed dance troupe. I walked in quietly, feeling like a stranger at my own family's event. My head still throbbed faintly from the surgery, but I held my posture tall. As promised, I'd been seated at the main table, right next to my mother. It wasn't a gesture of love, though. It was a strategic move, a performance for the guests. "Sweetie," Mom said as she gave me a stiff hug, her eyes already scanning the room for Gabriel. "You look nice." "Thanks," I said flatly, taking my seat. Melissa barely acknowledged me, too busy preening in her designer gown and basking in the attention of 200 guests. For the first half hour, I sat silently, sipping water while listening to their polite, shallow conversations. No one asked about my surgery. No one even asked how I was feeling. Then, after dinner was served, Mom stood up, champagne glass in hand, and tapped it with a fork. The room fell silent. "I want to make a toast to my beautiful daughter, Melissa," she began, beaming. "She's everything a mother could want. Successful, brilliant, marrying the man of her dreams." The crowd clapped and murmured in approval. Then Mom's gaze slid toward me. "And of course, there's Amanda. She's in healthcare." She said the word like it was a hobby, not a career. There was a pause, then a fake smile. "It's so important to have realistic expectations in life. Not everyone can be a Melissa." Heat crept up my neck, my fists clenched under the table, nails biting into my palms. Melissa laughed lightly, taking the microphone. "Mom's right. I mean, Amanda's sweet, but she's always been, well, the family burden." She turned to me, her tone dripping with condescension. "Remember when you cried at Christmas about your divorce? Total downer." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Robert, her fiancé, jumped in, smirking. "That's why Melissa and I work so well together. We're both leaders. Amanda's more of a support role person." Laughter rippled across the table. My stomach twisted. Then Mom delivered the final blow. "You know, bless her heart, Amanda couldn't even manage to get a ride after her little surgery. We were all so busy with the wedding, of course." Little surgery? Like brain surgery was a haircut? I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the marble floor. My legs trembled, not from weakness this time, but from fury. Before I could speak, the ballroom doors burst open. Gasps echoed as Dr. Gabriel West strode in, commanding the room in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo. His presence shifted the energy instantly. Conversations died. "Sorry I'm late," he said, his voice carrying easily over the stunned silence. The board meeting ran long. All eyes swiveled to me. Mom's face went pale. "Mr. West, we didn't know you were coming." "I'm not here for you," Gabriel said coolly, locking eyes with her. "I'm here for Amanda." A collective murmur rippled through the crowd. Gabriel stepped to the center of the room, taking the microphone from Mom's trembling hand. "Actually," he said, smiling slightly, "this is perfect timing. I have an announcement." Melissa's confident grin faltered. 3 hours ago, the board unanimously approved a historic decision, Gabriel continued. Amanda Brooks has been promoted to Chief Nursing Officer, the youngest in our hospital system's history. The room gasped. Her salary, Gabriel added pointedly, looking straight at Robert, is $250,000 a year, plus full benefits and a signing bonus I won't disclose in polite company. Melissa's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered. "But that's just numbers," Gabriel said, his voice rising with quiet authority. "What truly matters is this. While you were all planning centerpieces and parties, Amanda was holding the hand of a dying child for 17 hours straight. She's learned 3 languages to comfort families. She created a fund with her own money to help parents afford to stay near their sick children." Tears stung my eyes. "And," he said, his tone turning cold, "while recovering from brain surgery, she was abandoned by every single person at this table." The crowd went silent. Gabriel turned to Mom and Melissa. "Amanda didn't tell you this, but she also paid for 30% of this wedding. The so-called family burden is the reason tonight was even possible." Gasps exploded around the room. Melissa's bridesmaids stared at her, mouths open in shock. "Shame on you," Gabriel finished, his voice sharp as glass. "Family shows up. You didn't. But Amanda still did, again and again." Mom swayed like she'd been struck. Melissa's face crumpled into horror. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one standing small and silent. I was the one being seen. The ballroom was dead silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the chandeliers and Melissa's ragged breathing as she stared at Gabriel, her perfect wedding unraveling before her eyes. Then, like a switch had been flipped, my family scrambled to recover. Mom lurched to her feet, her voice suddenly syrupy sweet. "Amanda, sweetie, we had no idea. You should have told us about your promotion, about—" Melissa chimed in through trembling lips. "Yeah, Amanda, we just didn't realize how much you were doing. You know how busy we've been planning the wedding." "Busy?" I echoed, my voice sharp. "You weren't too busy to vote on napkin colors or debate roses versus peonies for hours." They both flinched. Before either of them could spin another excuse, I reached for the microphone Gabriel had set down. My hands didn't even shake. For the first time in my life, I was calm. "Let me make something clear," I said, my voice steady and loud enough for the entire room to hear. 3 weeks ago, I sent this family a message. My flight lands in Seattle at 1 p.m. Can someone pick me up? Just had surgery and can't drive. Gasps rippled through the crowd. 17 people in that group chat, I continued. Not one of you said yes. Not one asked how the surgery went. You were too busy. I locked eyes with Melissa. Her face was blotchy, her mascara running. And while we're talking about what's really been happening, I said coldly, let's talk about money. Over the past 2 years, I gave you $15,000. $5,000 for your emergency Cabo trip, $10,000 for this very wedding. Melissa's mouth dropped open. Amanda, that was supposed to be the down payment for my first home, I cut in. And you never paid me back. Not 1 cent. The crowd was whispering now, their polite smiles gone, replaced by shock and judgment. Mom reached for my hand. Honey, please, this is family business. No, Mom, I said, pulling back. My voice rose, filled with all the strength I'd buried for years. While you were planning flowers, I was saving lives. While you were laughing about my so-called little nursing job, I was fighting for children who didn't get to go home. And while you were too busy for me, a man who barely knew me flew over 1,000 miles to make sure I wasn't alone. I handed the microphone back to Gabriel and turned to face them one last time. You know what family does? My voice was quiet now, but it carried across the room. Family shows up. I held their gaze, my heart hammering. You didn't." Melissa broke down in sobs. Mom begged me not to leave, her voice desperate, but I didn't stop. With Gabriel at my side, I walked out of that glittering ballroom. Behind me, chaos erupted, shouts, arguments, the sound of Melissa's perfect world crumbling. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. 1 year later, my life was unrecognizable in the best way possible. I stood at the front of the grand conference room at St. Catherine's, looking out at 200 nurses, doctors, and hospital staff who had gathered for our annual summit. But this year, I wasn't just Amanda Brooks, the overlooked younger sister. I was chief nursing officer, and I had built something meaningful. Today, I began, my voice steady and strong, we celebrate not just our work, but each other. Over the past year, I'd launched the Healthcare Heroes Support Fund, a program designed to help medical workers who were dealing with family trauma and burnout. We provided counseling, financial planning, and resources for those who gave everything to others but had no one to show up for them at home. We'd already helped dozens of nurses and doctors set boundaries and reclaim their lives. After my speech, I stepped down to warm applause. Waiting for me were the people who had become my real family: Gabriel, Nancy, Maria, and a group of nurses who had supported me through everything. And then I saw Sophie. She came running toward me, her scarf gone now, her hair growing back in soft curls. She was in remission, healthy, vibrant, and smiling wider than ever. "I made you something," she said, handing me a piece of paper. It was a crayon drawing of us holding hands under a bright sun. At the top, she'd written in careful letters, "Happy You Day, the day you chose yourself." Tears filled my eyes as I hugged her tightly. In that moment, I thought back to everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. "Blood makes you related," I whispered, "but love makes you family." If you're reading this and you've ever felt unseen or unloved, I hope you hear me now. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to walk away. Choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. And when you finally do, you'll discover the people who truly belong at your table.